wrong? No.
No.
But is his dad teaching him out of fear? Yes.
Yes.
And so I've found that legalism really is rooted in fear. It's got the right box, but are you holding on to it in grace, saying this
Right.
is a safe space for me because I trust God? Or is this box the same? Is the box safe or is
Right.
God safe? Right. Yeah. And so I've found that to understand the box better, I have to not make the box a scary place.
Yeah, it's weird.
If you leave the box,
you've
you're gonna
got me
die.
on a really weird side of this conversation.
Yeah.
I haven't been on a long time. I mean, I think, and I'm not trying to be contrarian.
No,
what you
it's
just
fine.
said, I think what you just said is a good framing.
Yeah.
And I think it's the framing that's allowed, again, those of us that have had a little bit more legalistic evangelical backgrounds to like transition.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Bible talks about fear of the Lord, right? I mean,
Yes.
The Bible says this is like, that's the launch pad for understanding.
Sure.
Second, like, and this is something I've had to kind of circle back to, like, and I really am not, I didn't know what I came here for today for, but certainly not to promote legalism, because that's not how I live. It's not my vibe.
This is just how we roll. We didn't have no
that's
plan.
good. But like, we need to be scared of some things. I mean, I think everything's like a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
Like our experience around safe sex was so heavy-handed that like 60% of our generation can't have healthy sex. I just made up that stat. But like, it's actually hampered the ability for Christians to have like meaningful sexual experiences in their marriage, because they come with so much baggage.
Yeah.
So that's bad. That's bad. And so I think all of us are like, and I use that's illustratively, it's one of many examples. Like all of us have seen the negative consequences of like fear mongering, whether it's about hell or particular behaviors or whatever the case may be. But like, I also think that the depth of the risk is not known to us. Like we kind of think we know. Yeah. We kind of like, oh, I'm going to get pregnant, or I'm going to get addicted to drugs. I think the risks are much more existential than that, and they're much deeper. So again, neither of us know the answers, but it's some balance between exactly what I think. Your parents are a beautiful. I mean, I think you got both. I mean, I think it's important that you got both. It's some balance of like, I don't know the risks my behavior is putting me in. I know some of them, I don't know them. I need to be very, very fearful of them. I also know that I need to realize that God is here.
Yeah.
And he's taking me back in like constantly, no matter what I do.
Well, I think that the concept of having a little bit of fear is really the concept of, I think I have a limp that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah.
And now some people want to just rely on it and say, well, I'm only human, therefore I will fail all the time, and that is my excuse. But because I'm snarky, I say, yeah, but humans are made in God's image, so that means you're more than that.
Be perfect even as I am perfect.
Right. So perfect meaning be set apart, be completely different than everything you know. Why? Because the lie. The enemy's been saying to me the lie that he's been saying to everybody else. Lauryn Hill said something like that on her Unplugged album, but
I like it.
But it's true, which is if you do this thing, your eyes will be opened. You will know good and evil like God, and you will be a God. Yep. Little G, right?
That's what has happened. Yeah.
And so I think everybody, Christian, non-Christian, every human will believe that lie.
Well, it's a truth,
right,
that lies about all of the consequence.
Well, it's like this, to the degree of how much I think I need God in this moment, right? For me, I need God in the moment where I'm like, I'm going to text Joe one more time. and I feel like I'm bothering this man because he got a different kind of life than I got, because I'll obsessively think about something like that, right? But then, I won't think about it as much when I probably uh, should tone it down a little more at home because I'm just being really insecure, but on the outside I sound loud. You know what I mean? And so like with my daughters, if I do something, and I'll say, "Dad's too loud," or "Dad's too,"
Shocker.
yeah,
You have kids that say their dad's too loud?
or why'd you say that way? I'm like, okay, right. Eh, I'll just say, okay, you didn't deserve to hear it that way. This is what I was meaning to say. I still don't want you to do this thing, but I shouldn't have said it that way. And I was like, and I apologize because of this. For one, because I think I did something the wrong way. And two, if you ever meet a man that won't apologize, he's the wrong dude.
Agreed.
And so that's what I tell them. I was like, somebody don't apologize is a coward, and we can't be that. So dad doesn't have an excuse just because he's dad.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I mean, I think you're, I mean, it's like the Abraham Sarai problem. It's like where does our involvement end and where does God's work begin?
Right.
And I think you just described the inquiry. It's like, I think you have certain gifts and abilities and characteristics that you should utilize, and that you hear God a certain way and you should act on those things. I also think that we should receive the feedback from the universe, whether it's our kids or our spouse or friends, that help us moderate and refine those instincts. And it's just like everything we talk about, it's just a work in progress.
Yeah.
And a little unknowable.
I think I don't know. I really enjoy these kind of conversations because I have no idea what's going on, but the legalism thing is funny because it was just what really helped me was Christian hip hop. So
Right.
because I was used to going to, so like my the one year I tried to go to college, I used so much student loan money going to the family Christian bookstore buying music,
That is,
trying to find music that I like.
so first of all, there's nothing better than going to the Christian bookstore. I mean, it's an opportunity that doesn't exist. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
Crossway in Easley. I think it's like the last one on the planet, but
Right,
like,
yeah.
it was so satisfying for those
Right.
of us that did that on a regular basis. Second, I can't think of a better use of financial aid.
I mean, it was like I got pound tunnel rats and
Yeah.
and
Every drop of your
You know.
of your grant and scholarship money should have gone to TRs
But,
and gospel gangsters. And
but so
love
I
it.
was
That
like
makes me
trying to
very
figure out what I liked, but I was also buying. I think Goatee Records had just come out,
Mm-hmm.
so I bought everything Christafari. I bought all of Out of Eden.
I wanted
really,
Christafari to be so good, so bad. I wanted it to be so
Their
good.
first 3 albums, were
And I have a
just
lot of respect
amazing.
for their ministry.
Yeah.
Amazing's a little strong.
Yeah,
Amazing's a little strong.
the first 3 albums I really liked.
Sure.
Liked a lot.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was still new to. I am absorbing information
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
want
Yeah, yeah.
in a way that I can handle,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've never heard music this way
100%.
and like absorbed it.
No.
But then at the same time, I was buying anything Tooth and Nail Records put out because I was really new to this.
Poor old Lou.
Yeah, but I was really new to this concept that Christians were alternative.
Sure.
This whole expression thing. So I was like, whatever they were putting out, and then, but I really got into Grits.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, just I was like, this sound, like their first
I mean, Mental Releases was,
album came out. I was like,
it's amazing.
and I still listen to it, and I'm like,
I mean, it's actually regrettable. I mean, what was the second one called? Factors of the Seven?
Factors of the Seven. Yeah,
So that album was good.
yeah,
No, actually, and it was a conventional like hip hop record. It
Mm-hmm.
was good. But I mean, Mental Releases was so. I mean, I need to pause. I mean, until I'm drawing a blank. He just released a new instrumental record. Northwest. What's the guy's name? Producer and MC. He's very dope. Anyway, it'll come to me in a second. But I mean, we haven't really had, and even who I'm thinking of is all conventional hip hop. He doesn't even do jazzy stuff, but like we've really never had something like that. And the biggest, and I've derailed. We weren't talking about grits. The real bummer about that is it's the style that suited them the best.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like kind of, I mean, apologies in advance, but like they're sort of modest rappers.
Yeah.
They were very well suited to that kind of like off kilter, sort of jazzy.
It was very
sort of
Arrested
native
Development.
It was very like native tongues.
Yeah.
And it suited them very, very well.
Yeah. So I was listening to that and I was like, because I remember I hadn't heard them, but I saw their ad and they were dressed like backpackers and everything. I didn't have that vocabulary, so I lived in my own little neurological bubble. So I just was like, I understand that picture. Same thing I felt when I saw Brainwash Projects.
Yeah.
Pigeon John and B Twice, and I saw them wearing suits, and I was like, I understand that picture.
Yeah.
I don't have to hear it first. I understand the picture.
Well, you sort of lived like kind of like in culture but against culture, so anything like that I think probably resonated.
I'm just like
you.
on the line. I sometimes I feel like I'm just watching multiple movies going around all the time, and I just choose which ones I'm going to jump into. And so Grits was one of them, and but then it just kind of moved me forward, and I'm like listening to this and listening to that, and then I find History of Hip Hop, and that's what 2001 I think, and I get in on it, and my username's Brown, and that's when I started using the word Brown for stuff, because the joke was always like, I'm in the Midwest, you're in Michigan, there's no sun, and so it's like, if you're Puerto Rican, why aren't you brown? I'm like, for one, that's a misnomer, but two, there's no sun. So I started using Brown for stuff because I thought it was funny, and now it's just kind of become a thing where all my artwork I signed Brown. But so I first started using it there, and so there were people there that only knew me, like I met from there, that just call me Brown.
Sure.
Like that still, they don't know my name. But
by the way, I'm really bad with names. So when I met you, I hope this isn't like racist, and B,
you are very racist.
I hope that it happens a lot. But like, I think most people's inclinations is your name is Jose.
Right.
Like both sort of for the spelling, and also just because like that's a more common Latin American name.
Right.
All I knew was your name wasn't Jose. So I don't think I have it. I think I saw it the other day. I think I have a notes app where I phonetically spelled out your name so that I could remember how to say it. I would just walk around and be like, Josue.
So it's just a little Spanish break then. So Jose is Jose.
Sure.
Josue is Josue.
Absolutely.
Jose is Joseph. Josue is Joshua.
Interesting.
And it's just in Latin American countries, because of Spain, because of Catholicism, you name your children after the Holy Family. You don't go reach into the Old Testament and pick a name.
Sure.
Though Joshua, Yeshua, Jesus,
pretty common.
Very New Testament, very Holy Family.
Sure.
So yes, but then I'm very cautious to say that, because then someone wants to call me Joshua. I'm like, look, my birth certificate says Josue. My driver's license says Josue.
It's a great name.
My white mother called me Josue. My name's Josue.
It's a great name.
So anyway, but that also though being a thing where I'm like kind of always trying to figure out, kind of like a Basquiat thing, trying to find out where my world is, because I have, like, when I was really little, for a while we lived in Puerto Rico, and then we came back so I could start school. And so there's this part of me that's like, that's who I am, and I like this, and I like this, and how do I bring all these things together? And I think hip-hop culture, at least artistically, the visuals of hip-hop culture, because graffiti is where my mind sits, although I don't paint, but visually and cartoony and like on paper, it's how I create. But meeting Christians that made this music in an authentic way, whereas this is where Christians are going to make this music. I was like, I get that. That makes sense. And even though like on message boards, people go, but is it, can a Christian do this? Can a Christian rapper take his shirt off on stage? And I'm like, why? Why is that a question? Why are you taking your shirt off? What's your deal?
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the legal, and it never has changed. I mean, I've been here I literally have been here for all the Christian rap generations,
Yeah.
all of them. And there's never been a moment where there hasn't been sort of a police force
Right.
asking the same question. And it's actually, and this is true of life. It's not unique to like the gospel hip hop community, but you just see it now. It's just like, it's the same questions. Can artists collab with general market people? Like you said, can they take their shirts off? Can they mimic styles?
Right.
I mean, like where, can they use, gun bar metaphors, whatever the case may
Right.
be.
Exactly. Yeah. Or can you say hell, or should we say Hades?
Yeah. Can you
or
use like a
Sheol
double
or something
entendre
like
that
Yeah.
like, but I mean, the cool part, and this is a little bit of a side of what you were saying, but like, I mean, it's a unique part. I mean, it's kind of a unique part of rap music. I mean, it's a unique part of hip hop culture, but like of the form of rap music. Like in one sense, I think it's probably perceived as one of like the narrowest art forms in the sense that like it's very attributable to people of color, to the Black community, to the experience of to the inner city marginalized experience. And so in one sense it's kind of like I think if you just ask someone on the street, like, is this an accessible and broadly useful genre? I think they would be like, no. I mean, this is a music style that certain people do, and they talk about certain things. But the real gift of hip hop culture, and I really do think there's something distinct about it. Almost, I mean, maybe pop music like writ large, maybe kind of singer songwriter a little bit, but like one of the gifts that the authors of hip hop culture and rap music in particular gave us was like it's a very specific and explicit genre. And I don't mean explicit as in like adult. I mean like it's a type of music that you can fill. It's very word dense, obviously. Mm-hmm. It's the most word dense genre there is. And you can fill it with a lot of detail.
Right.
And so it lends itself to like use in all these different kind of ways. It's not like fully a content neutral. I mean, and I say this like, I'm somebody who's like, I don't sound like any of the people that I like. I wish I did. I just don't.
I always hate it when you say that.
Well, I know, but I just don't. But, and I have a bias toward conventional sounding rap music. Mm-hmm. I want your voice to sound a certain way. I want the beats to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That being said, it's just this broadly useful kind of content neutral genre that can be filled with all sorts of life experiences.
Yeah.
And the word you used, in an authentic way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like anything. It can be used in a real inauthentic way.
Sure.
Obviously. All you have to like listen to a Honey Nut Cheerios commercial where they've, bastardized, a rap, an attempt at a rap song. But it's actually a medium that lends itself to people expressing a wide range of backgrounds. And you not only see that, like, the cool part is you not only see that in like a variety of demography, from like white suburban kids to, Black inner city youth. You actually see that in the Black community itself. You've seen this like amazing, beautiful, like, from the Project Blodes, you reference like Pigeon John to like two more traditional sort of conventional sort of stylings. It's just like this really, really beautiful range of types of humans and the things that they reflect on. That was too much talking on that, but
No, it's fine.
but
This
it's
is what
just
we do.
I've always felt that way. It's just like it's a very malleable genre.
I think this is a good conversation just because I mean Christian hip hop or is having its own surgence now in a different way, where back in the day you made if you were a believer you made hip hop music, you knew you were not going to make a dime. You did it because you
Yep.
wanted it, and you can make money now.
Yep.
Um, and so it's got a whole different it's got a whole different approach and sound. Everything, all of it sounds not just stylistically or the way rappers are putting verses together, but just in a general sense. It's just got this whole feel that's different. And I think probably hip hop culture in general has a whole different feel to me now. That again, I don't want to sound like a gatekeeper, but if I go back to why I started listening in the first place, I can't find it currently. I can't find that why currently.
But it's not there because it's not really there.
Yeah.
But we're not gatekeepers.
Yeah.
We're older. We're old.
We're older. Yeah.
And I've had that. We've all had that sort of evolution. Like this, for all the things we just said, this is in the first instance a reflection of young people going through some struggle, and it needs to continue to be that. Needs is maybe not the right word. I mean, that's my preference, that continues to be the source material for where hip hop goes. And if they prefer trap or they prefer, 180 BPM hi-hats in their songs, like, it's not like it's taken me a long time to come on board with that, but that's their prerogative. And I'm determined to support it. Not because I'm going to be able to listen to all of it or because it resonates the same way, but because I believe in the process, and I believe in like the lineage, and it's important to me. And to your point about like how gospel hip hop has come along for the ride, like it's a beautiful thing. Like I can only listen to so much Lecrae. It's not really like my vibe.
Right.
But
yeah. Well, then I'm glad you said it.
No, but like
no shade on Lecrae.
No, it's not even a little bit. Incredible music.
Yeah.
Incredible talent. Incredible man. I mean, like a man who is like expressed himself over and over again, regardless of the consequences from either side, and a man who has influence among athletes and musicians. I mean, it's a deeply emotional thing. But then you have like the internet and TikTok is like broken down all these barriers, and it has for decades. But it's like the Caleb Gordons of the world who basically made a name, on TikTok. And I mean, I listen to him routinely.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not like my first vibe, but I listen to him all the time. A, because I like it, and B, because I'm proud of, I'm just proud of what, I'm just proud of what the gospel rappers have been able to do, the opportunities that God has given them, and that our industry, I mean, I was part of a group that like demonized the word Christian rap as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think a lot of us did.
I'm not like distinguishing you, but I'm just saying like, I mean, we are the same mindset. Like I never wanted to be called a Christian rapper.
Right.
I still don't really want to be called a Christian rapper, but the names don't matter. I've always been proud to talk about my faith, and I have a deep sense of pride in, by whatever name you want to call it, what God has done over many, many decades now, and the platform that the Andy Minios and the Social Club Misfits and all these guys have now is just really, really beautiful.
Yeah. And I
And I'm glad they're getting paid.
yeah, getting paid
And
is
can I say
helpful.
one more thing? You know, I
Yes.
never like it's not this isn't like football free agency or like NBA free agency where it's like, well, in 1981, why didn't I get, $140 million contract when it was sort of comparable talent? I mean, none of us deserve that money.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, maybe, Plato should have gotten his money. Theory has it should have gotten his money. Gospel Gangsters maybe should have gotten their money. I mean, I can probably count on a hand, like,
Yeah.
there are 10 people that should have gotten their money
Or LA Symphony
in
for that matter.
1998. LA Symphony shouldn't have gotten their money. Pigeon maybe. LA Symphony shouldn't have gotten their money. I mean, those guys, I mean, I listen to them around the clock. I have a cat. I have a cat named Haters. Okay, I love
Oh
LA
yeah, yeah,
Symphony.
yeah.
So this is like, but like,
I really like that Baloney album.
and they were their records are baloney's dope. Their records are dope. But like, anyway, I'm just being stupid. All I have to say, like, the people that have come up, they're making like the production, the engineering, the lyricism, everything deserves to be compensated.
That's true. I think one of the things for hip hop made by believers that really helped me in that transitional period when I was newly married, and my my oldest daughter was just, gosh, she was 1 2, and that time period is, I wasn't just finding a voice. It was kind of like when I was 14 and I really just dialed in on what the Beastie Boys were saying. And then I kind of pulled from Tribe, and I pulled from all, Black Sheep, just a little bit here and there, as much as I felt like I could comprehend. Because Flint, Michigan is there was a big gang culture there. And so I took all of it very seriously, almost as a health and safety thing. I don't play games with any of this stuff. I'll take what I feel like I can legitimately represent, even though I'm not trying to represent it. If I think I comprehend it and I can talk about it in a normal way, even with all the slang I'm saying, no one's going to think I'm trying to front on anything.
Right.
But in the same way, when I'm, 23 and 24, 25, and I'm finding Sphere, when I heard Marzill's Raw Material, and I was like, this makes sense to me a lot. It was kind of like when I'm 18 or 19 and I hear Grits. And then, but what really hit me was when I heard The Night We Call It a Day, the Deep Spice Ride, the immediate intro, and I was like, stop the presses.
It's a pretty special,
waiting.
instrumental at first.
I've been waiting for this. And it wasn't like I've been waiting for Christian hip hop to get to this or anything. It was like me personally, in my soul, I was like, this. I don't know who these people are. I don't know anything about it. Because like I was so used to going to the Christian bookstore, and it's like, if you like this, you'll like this. And so when I looked at Deep Space, when I looked at the record the first time, or the CD, I thought it was another compilation.
Sure, kind of, yeah.
Like another one.
Sure,
I was like,
sure.
I don't know what this is. Who are all these guys?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna get it anyway. And then I sat and listened to it. And I was like, because at that same time I was listening to, Incubus. Right. You know what I mean? They had just come out with.
I'm glad that we were like some natural segue from Incubus back into.
But that was just like where I was at. So I was just like, but at the same time, it wasn't because I represent alternative music. It was just like, these songs on this album, I get this. But the thing about music made by believers was, I had the bass line of, we all believe in the same God, and I think we're all trying to work this out. And I hear it in the music.
So that is like, and the older we get, like, we're just old. I mean, we're just old. But that's like the whole litmus test for me. It is certainly now. It kind of always was. Like, are you? Like, I don't. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example that isn't. But like, I don't need you. I mean, this is a very bizarre example. it's old and stale, but like Indigo Girls. But like, I don't need you to be explicitly, I certainly don't need you to be explicitly Christian or even faith based. I just want to hear you caring about the big things.
Yeah.
Like you said, and you were being a little bit more specific on the Christian side, and that's definitely what I prefer. But like, so I mean, this sounds crazy, but like Hosier's a great example. I mean, Hosier is I listened to none Hosier. My girls were into. I saw him, and we were at a festival in Chattanooga, and I literally just knew "Take Me to Church" is all I knew, and I wasn't really a big fan of that song. I had no idea like how philosophical his music was, and he seems to be all but a nihilist, which I don't really, you know, I think is very, very misguided. But I'm very moved by him asking the questions. And at this point in my life, like I have very little time for music that's not asking some questions.
Sure. I mean,
Let's get back to DS5.
I think, yeah, but I think with DS5 though, see, I was already listening to Plato a lot
Right.
because of
Because he was good.
Ilharmonics,
Right.
but I was only listening for him.
Sure. Well, I mean,
Because-
all of us were. I mean,
because
same like
he
the
was
E-Rock
just-
albums. It was Ilharmonic. Same thing with the E-Rock. Like I bought the E-Rock albums
Yeah.
to listen to Plato. I called Greg Manchild, and I was like, "There's this guy on this E-Rock album, and he sounds like a little bit like Raffi." There was this line about backstroking through the speaker, and I was like, "He sounds a little like Raffi." Very, very good. So
Yeah.
all of us were buying those records for Doug.
So I just was like, okay, oh wait, he's in this. Okay, I got that. And so I start connecting dots, and I was like, okay, Marzil is in this, but they're grouping. So I just, because sometimes I'm slow on the uptake on this. I'm like, okay, this is a collective. Okay, I know who these guys are. And then I inadvertently, I never got into Lab Click, even though artistically I'm like, I don't know why I didn't. I mean,
it just wasn't like you either kind of had their tapes or you didn't. You know, it was like, I mean, you couldn't find anything this whole conversation. You couldn't find anything time. You certainly, I mean, I don't know how anybody got those tapes. I mean, Greg found them on a message board, and you know, we were connected with them pretty early on. But like, you would have loved those tapes.
I mean, I've now listened to them now because you can stream them.
You can, yeah.
But I'm like art core and low quality bus and all that, and I'm like,
Shadow Your Smile. I mean, they're so dope.
This is, Perez Prado and all that. And I'm like, this is smart.
Yeah, it's such a crazy picture of the subjectivity of art, because it's hard to explain it. You're exactly right. It's something like, it was like conventional, not conventional, very like, it seemed like the least intentional thing you could possibly do.
Right.
And yet tremendously smart. It was very weird.
Yeah.
At this day, it's hard to, I mean, they just, that stuff is crazy, because they just like, crazy samples. They made these real lo-fi beats.
Yeah.
Trip's just running through just writing words and just running through the beat. And if you had, this is going to be very racist, but if you grabbed, this would be very racist, and I apologize in
How
advance.
audacious.
But if you grabbed, 6 out of every 10 just random black kids off the street and asked them to do it, it would be listenable. You do that with a white, I mean, to find an ill trip who could just like run through the beat with no cadence, and for it to feel like something right,
yeah.
was like really, I mean, you could say it's like, he was good at that because that's what he was good at, and he knew it, but like nobody knows it. It's just unlikely is the bottom line. It was just always very unlikely.
Well, per your racist statement,
It was very racist. in
it's
both directions, by the
it's
way.
it's uh it's stereotypical.
It's stereotypical. It's certainly very stereotypical.
But
Best case scenario, it's
but
stereotypical.
to some kind of truth in it, if you grow up in a scenario where that is your sound, this is your people's sound, you are going to absorb it. Whereas
That's right.
in the time of the hipster and the beatnik and all that, jazz was their sound, so they absorbed jazz and
Right.
they absorbed that culture. And so if you're around it enough, or like my son, okay, my son's 5, so he's been at the skate park since day one. So he'll ride a balance bike and drop in, and skaters stop and watch him. And they're like, "How'd you get him to do that?" I'm
Right.
like, "I didn't get him to do nothing. He's been watching you his whole life.
That's
and
right.
He
He's just
just
been
does
watching
it."
other people do it.
Right. So I
Well,
think
it's also
it's
it's
kind of
also
the same
what
thing.
we perceive as like the right way versus it's also like a little bit like
Right.
the way the world is conditioned to expect certain types of things to sound or not
Right.
sound.
So I mean,
Anyway, that's really not the point of really. That's really I really
we're
derailed
talking
the point.
about Lab Click.
Yeah, that was the point. Is Lab Click was a very improbable, unbelievable experiment.
Although I thought Listener was black.
Well, yeah, that's what No, I mean, I mean, truthfully, both of them project that way, and definitely Dan. And this is the thing that Greg and I have yelled at for years. He had so when we met him and we wrote when we did the first Deep Space Five, it's an EP. I don't remember what we ultimately call it. Like, is the first we recorded in a hotel in Orlando. Mm-hmm. Is Precedes Night We Call Day. You can stream it now. But like when we wrote that, like he couldn't. We got there and he was like, "I don't write in bars." Like he couldn't count his bars.
Oh, okay.
And we were like, "What are you talking? Like, it was like, what are you talking about?" And I had perceived him as such a like conventional bar like writer.
Yeah.
And that's not who that's literally Night We Called It a Day is just like lines that he would just write them.
Yeah.
And then figure out where the words fit over the beat. It was very weird.
Yeah.
Because to your point, that's not the way he sounds on Lab Click tapes.
No, and I think that it's just not the way he thinks either. So it's that's the genius of his genius is I want to be a part of this so badly. I will figure out a normal way for me to do it.
Right.
And not try to be like somebody else.
Well, and this is really the when you brought up Deep Space 5 and the way, I mean, I think the weird part is Night We Called a Day is still a very derivative record. Like half of us were very influenced by the backpacker scene of the mid to late 90s. The other half, we were all very influenced by the Tunnel Rats. We were very influenced by like the West Coast underground scene. So like the weird part is I think to a person, all of us would say we were still trying to find our voices.
Yeah.
And we felt either at the time or shortly after, like we still felt very derivative. That being said, I think the reason the Night We Called It a Day worked and why ultimately Deep Space 5 worked is because we were on the road to finding very natural voices. And we cared about that.
Right.
To your point about Dan,
right.
Lab Click, like that was it was important for us. It was important for Greg and I not to sound like LP.
Right.
From Company Flow.
Right.
Like, and there was a moment where we were both trying to sound like that, or Aesop Rock, or whatever the case may be.
I don't think anybody sounds like Aesop Rock.
Nobody sounds like Aesop Rock, but like, there's a, you're grabbing all of these. You're just grabbing all these influences. I mean, there's a time where I thought SS Mob, but you probably don't even know who they are. But like, there was this like very, like this gospel. They were a little bit after Gospel Gangsters, but they were like a very West Coast gospel rap group. I love them. I wanted to anyway, I would say, I think the reason Night We Called It a Day worked is because the still fairly derivative moment we were all in, we were we had certainly collectively, we had found it was not something new. It's not like we didn't invent something new.
Mhm.
We were doing something that I think people knew was mostly true to who we were.
I think it was an authentic representation of where you were at that
That's
time
right.
in the place you were given.
That's right.
Um, I mean, had honestly, I had not listened to Black Alicians. I had not listened to Black Alicious until after Gift died.
What?
I had never sat down and actually listened to it because in that time period of like '99 and stuff, I'm you know um, with me I'm either really quiet or I overshare. There's
Sure.
no middle.
Sure.
I'm either or
Right.
right?
Right.
And so in that time and space, it was either I'm going to focus on this or I'm
Yeah.
going to know all of it.
Yeah.
And so I was like I would go and I'd be on like the sphere and I would say I understand this. I don't care about that. That's
Right.
just an opinion. That's this. And then I'd go on and I do battles with people and stuff like that.
Yep.
And people hated
Key
my style.
Key style.
Key
battle.
styling. I would just do that. And then we had a fake rap group on the sphere.
I like it.
We were called the Crew Necks.
I don't hate that.
because I just typed out this line that said, "Cause we're like sweaters, we bring heat when we compete." It's just the stupidest thing in my mind, and I was like, "We're Crew Necks."
I mean, that's a pretty dope line.
And so it was just, I was at my job being a really bad employee, key styling and instant message rapping with people going back and forth, and I still have some of them printed out, and I was just like, I kind of like that line. I kind of like that. I don't like that line. But at the time, it just gave me something to be a part of.
Sure.
Because also, I know some people still roll their eyes now, but because of the payable on death, colloquial known as POD.
Yeah.
I first heard them in '97. I was at the Cornerstone Festival, and a friend of mine was like, it was my first time being there, and my friend was like, it's like 11 o'clock at night, and my friend's like, you got to go hear this band, Payable on Death. And I'm like, why? And he goes, they're like the Christian Rage. I'm like we need that, right? And
They're
then
like the Christian Rage. That's
and
amazing.
I mean, but that's 1997, right?
Sure.
And
No. I mean, that's a totally reasonable.
And so I get into the tent, and it's full of sweaty
Sure.
young adult men. Probably
moshing, right?
There's probably 150 dudes in there.
Right.
And I'm looking, and I see them. I was like, all right, a black dude, Mexican dude, and two dudes that are brownish, and they're talking like I talk. Because I'm with people that don't talk like me.
Right.
I have a habit of, I'm very, for the sake of sounding racist, I make the joke that I'm not brown, I'm khaki. I fit with white people. I fit with all colors.
Right.
I'm very neutral.
Right.
But I've always found that in church, white people were way more comfortable with me. But at work, brown skinned people were way more comfortable with me, because at work, at work I show out, but in church I don't.
Right.
But in this case, all of my friends that were there were white, and so they didn't talk the way I talked, especially a native way that I
Right.
talked. And so a lot of times, like my kids or my wife, I'll say, I grew up in the hood, and they're like, I'm like, I identify with it because it was around me. I did grow up
Sure.
in the hood, but I wasn't hood. In part, it'll be a very odd thing to say. In part because I have PTSD because of all this trauma I went through. I don't even remember much of my childhood, so I literally don't. So I had to go through a lot of therapy to talk about some stuff. But in this sphere, because of now neurodivergence, and because I couldn't pay attention to much anyway, I just absorbed things around me. I didn't have the attention span to become a gangster or to go over here and become this or to drink or to smoke or anything. So I had my religious experience and I had this mental emotional experience to where I just didn't have the ability to step out. So I absorbed it. So my thing is, in in the hood or impoverished areas where people even agree, around me were mostly Mexicans and white people in my neighborhood. So in the mid to late 80s, in where I lived, the white people were the hippies that were getting older. Um, there were bikers, like 1%er bikers and things like that
Right.
around in my neighborhood, and then lots of Mexicans, like coming up, migrant workers. They would come up to Michigan and work in the farms and stuff. Some, actually were third and fourth generation, but abuela speaks Spanish, but nobody else does. And so, in my elementary school, most of the people that went there were Spanish speaking kids. So I stuck out there because brown kid, black hair, I looked the part, but I don't speak Spanish. So that was always weird. So white kids felt more comfortable with me because I was the brown kid that they could talk to. But I didn't get along with them because I didn't relate to them.
Right.
But we grew up in the same neighborhood.
Right.
Um, so I just kind of absorbed what I think is common that we call the vernacular of the hood. I'm just using it for the
Right.
colloquialism. There's anger in it. I was an angry person.
Right.
This vocabulary made sense to my anger. I didn't know I was angry, right? You know what I mean? There is a sense of, there's an impoverished ideology when in a thought process that you just pick up as almost by osmosis that is very insulated. So if you're in the bubble, it doesn't matter what you look like. This is not your vocabulary. This is not how you think. This is not how you dress. This is, and so because my mom was who she was and she was more of like this hippie thought process, rock and roll as a visual made sense to me, but the rest of it made sense to my soul and in my mind, and so in my self-expression. So when I say I'm from the hood, that's really more what I'm in. My soul is identifies with it and lived in it, but the rest of me just kind of existed. So when it comes to not knowing, never listening to Black Alicious and things like that, I found in Christian hip hop of the early 2000s, I was like, I can understand this. I'm trying to follow Jesus, and they have a general idea that I can focus on here. So like when you had like gospel gangsters and stuff like that, I was like, great, but I don't want to hear a sermon in a song. Mm-hmm. I want to hear Sintax be sad and talk about Jesus. I want to hear Star Wars and Jesus. You know what I mean? I want.
Josue, that means a lot, man.
That's that.
For you to be able to be that specific about it.
But I want to hear I'm a patriarch b-boy breaking bones in the park. I'm like, we probably shouldn't be able to say that, but he said that and that works. I'm like, because we do, you know what I mean? We are, and but that's like, but I was like, because that's like on, that's on Raw Material, I think.
That's Compound Fractures.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's my favorite song on that album. And your verse is my favorite. It's not because we're friends, but that before I had no concept. I'm like, that's my favorite verse on the whole album. But Man Child has a lot of gems, just a lot of one-liners that are just like fire. But as far as that album goes, that's my favorite verse. And so, but as per POD, when I saw them, I understood them when I looked at them immediately. And so they used to be, we're all in the same age room within 3 to 5 years. And so it gave me something to look at and listen to that I identified with. I listen to Christian hip hop. I didn't think I can be that, right? I thought I enjoy this, I appreciate this, and as an art form, and I'm receiving this as food. But when I saw Payable on Death, I was like, that is something I already am.
Right.
I can be that and identify with that, and it helped me in a way that I needed at the time. So a lot of people are just like, oh, POD. I'm like, no, you don't understand how big a deal it was in 1997 when they only had 2 albums.
Yeah.
And they were just touring. This is before anybody knew who they were.
No, they were a very, very big deal.
But
they were very good.
And so now they're just rock stars. I mean, I mean that in a good way.
Right.
They're just world famous rock stars. Sure. They can just do whatever.
Sure.
Musically, they're just that's where they're at. And interestingly enough, I've found that I think therapy and just finding myself ministerially and how I am with my kids, I found that I've let go of like a lot of the Christian heavy music that I was really into, that I identified with, that really fed my soul, that really helped me. I have found that the sound I don't need anymore,
Sure.
but I'm still going back to, you know, uh, um, Deep Space Five.
Interesting.
Like my kids found baloney, and now every time they want to get in,
Very listenable.
they my daughters are memorizing the lyrics
Very
on
listenable.
that album.
I was getting confused. Is King Kong on that one?
Yes.
And yeah, I mean that's the one and I think Haters is on that one.
Haters is on that
King
one.
Kong.
Uh,
It's a great album.
and so it's like I saw a few months ago, I was on their page, on their Instagram page, and there was this post that said, "Is Baloney the greatest LAS album?" And I
Yes,
was like,
that's a fact.
yes,
That's actually a fact.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And I think it's just because of their issue with not being able to release their second album, and the whole deal with that label, which I know the name, but I can't think of it. The interesting thing enough is really the only real reason I focused on what they were about to put out, the reason I knew Baloney came out, was because I was listening to a band called Chevelle, which got released onto their album, the label that they got signed to, that went defunct. Because I was at Cornerstone Festival the day Chevelle got signed. Now Chevelle was like the Christian Tool. I don't think they meant to. They were just 18-year-old kids, and they sounded like Tool.
Right.
And so they got a set in between a band called The Insiders, which is a ska band out of Detroit, and a band called Dear Ephesus, which was an emo band. And they all kind of knew each other. And I knew people in those bands, and so they put them on. And so in the middle of their 3-song set, these kids didn't even face the crowd. They played with their back to the crowd. And in the middle of their set, they sold out, and all they had were cassettes. And they got signed that day to that label.
Dang, that's awesome.
So it was them and Sixpence None the Richer,
Yep.
and LAS were like the big names on, and
Sure.
then the label went flat. So I was aware that LAS was supposed to put something out, and then I was like, wow, that didn't happen. And then, Baloney, I was like, this is brilliant. And so then I saw
The packaging,
everything about it is just
Yeah.
great. And that's why I love buying CDs, is because it's so thoughtful. I mean, it's bread, and then the CD is the baloney, and the bread is on the back, and they have the little label, like a sandwich label, and it says, it's just fun. So my kids are listening to it, and they're memorizing all the lyrics, and so we're rapping along with it or whatever. And but there's something about it. They're like, so these guys are Christians? I was like, well, I think some of the members are professing Christians. I think so, as far as I understand. I think Pigeon John does,
Right.
and as far as I know, Joey the Jerk is. At least I think so. But I'm like, but look, here's the deal. I was like, they're gonna say something here that we can repeat as far as faith goes, but
Freaks.
but then Flynn says, what does he say? Heterosexual tactics, ladies love the L. Yes, it's so automatic. So I'm like, okay, guys, this is what this means. It's a reference to LL Cool J, and he's not gay.
Right.
I was like, so that's not necessarily not Christian, but it's not the gospel.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So, but that the thing about what I didn't get as a kid, as it came to culture and music, was someone just sitting it down and say, okay, this doesn't line up with our lifestyle, what we believe, but this is a good part of it.
That's right.
And so that's what I get to do with my kids. I'm like, because my daughter, who just turned 14, is now into K-pop. And at first I was like,
Disaster.
oh my gosh, I
No,
was
I mean,
devastated. But as I just was like, okay. My oldest daughter, when she was listening to Bieber when he first came out, and I was like, and it made me really, really insecure, because that means she was changing, and he's cute and all this, and I didn't like it. It made me really insecure. I was like, we ain't gonna listen to that. And so I was like, here's POD, here's Living Sacrifice, here's everything heavy, right? And so I was like, you're gonna listen to this with Dad.
It's also like 25 years old.
Yeah. So And I thought to myself, I don't want to do this to her because now, as an adult, she's had talks with me. She goes, "It would have really been helpful if I could talk to you about boys."
Right.
I was like, "It would have been helpful if I knew better then."
Right.
And I'm sorry.
We're growing up with our kids. I
Uh,
mean, it's unfortunately.
so now with they're 10 years apart, and so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do the same thing. So by texting my oldest, once I realized she was listening to this, I was like, help me, your sister likes K-pop. So she calls me.
How do I participate?
She's like, so she calls me, and she just lays it out for me, and so then I can go, and I'm like, okay, this is what I understand, this is what I know, let's talk about it, right? And so now she's just like, I only like this, and like in their music world, in their product, they're only allowed to sing about these things, and they're not allowed to be like really sexual over here and do this. And so it's actually pretty clean.
Yeah.
And I'm like listening to it, and I'm like, it actually is. And so like I'm learning to have an ear for this sound, and I'm like, at first listen, it sounds like Korean in sync.
Sure.
But once you sit down and you have a fan of it explain it to you, when I just listen to my daughter as a fan of it, I'm like, okay.
Well, that's what I've sort of learned, whether it's food or music or like an activity. Like, if there's in one sense, humans are just dopes, and it's sort of like the Lego movie. Like,
Yeah.
Everything is awesome. We can clap the baby shark mindlessly in a stadium together really, really fast. So what I'm about to say isn't a given, but like, if a lot of people are into something, there's something about it that's sort of redeeming, for a lack of a better word. Again, whether it's a food item that you're not accustomed to or a music style, and credit to you to asking your daughter what that thing is for her, because there is something there. There is something that matters to her in the same way POD mattered to you.
Yeah. So I just think,
Or in some way like
that it's creates conversations.
It
And
does.
so I think this conversation is just really interesting. Geez, 25 years ago, would I have thought this was going to happen? No. And so like I'll tell my daughter later, I was like, oh yeah, I had, Sintax on my, because I can't call you Joe. She'll be like, Joe who? I was like, Sintax is on my podcast. And she'll be like, what? So before I release it, I'll probably just send her this so she can see it. But the thing is, it's part of, in as much as you're now part of my current life and my old man life, seeing her in the car when we're playing Night We Called It a Day, and the echo of 5, 5, 5, and she's in her car seat, she's going 5, 5, 5. That's part of my life, right? You know what I mean? So she's a little kid. This is so Deep Space 5 is her gospel music in a way. You know what I mean? It's like, I grew up hearing Larnell Harris and Petra and Sandy Patty and all this mix. My dad is the gospel
Milo
person.
Lefevre.
All of that, right?
Yeah.
Petra. And so Deep, DS5 is hers.
Yeah. I mean, you've made some reference to that in the past, and I mean, it is a reminder of our age, but I mean, that is for us to have people that have enjoyed our music, to have raised grown children on our music, is just, and there's 15 of you in the world. We're not even talking about 10,000. We're talking, there's 100 people like this. But like we talked about earlier, like the Dougs of the world and Gregs and Nate and Dan, I mean, those guys.
Play-Doh, aka Crumb.
Man-Child.
Gotta put their rap names out there. I'm just joking.
This isn't like a false humility. I never. This should have never been a part of my story. And it's like my whole story in some ways. I mean, I always say it's like the deepest part. I mean, outside of my faith, it precedes everything. It precedes my lawyering, my family, everything. But the idea that I would, you would be able to share that about your life and then your children is just more than I've ever
I mean, but it's cool to
Very
share that.
thankful.
It's cool to share that with you. But I mean, the only other music that I can say influenced my children that directly was Payable on Death,
Yeah.
because there was a time when my oldest